Hi, everyone. I'd like to do a shout out to our sponsor, Baco Diagnostics. Early detection is the single most important factor in improving patient outcomes. The Baco Diagnostics team recognizes how impactful a podiatric physician can be and remains committed to supporting you in your role as the first line of defense in diagnosing conditions of the lower extremity. Thanks to the unwavering support of their clients, Baco Diagnostics has been able to give back to the podiatric community for 16 years by providing podiatric educational resources and advocating for the position. Baco Diagnostics, helping podiatric physicians keep America on its feet. If you have not yet had the opportunity to utilize Baco Diagnostics services, get started today by sending an email to corporaterelations@bacodiagnostics.com. The first 50 podiatry offices who request a starter kit will receive a Dean's Chat mug. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dean's Chat, where we discuss all things podiatric medicine. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. I'm the Dean at the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine and co-host for the Dean's Chat podcast. Once again, I'm with my co-host, Dr. Johanna Richey. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
I am doing fabulous, kind of getting ready for the holidays. Life is good.
Indeed. It's kind of hard to complain. We've got gorgeous weather, too. We had a little rain, and it was actually kind of cold outside. Feeling all the feels.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, our guest this week is going to have a little remembering of the Arizona weather. I'd like to introduce Dr. Arthur Evensen to Dean's Chat. Dr. Evensen, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, happy to be here.
Oh my gosh, we've been working a long time to put this together. And sure. For our audience, just kind of a little bit of background. Arthur was, by the way, we go first names on Dean's Chat, right? Yeah, for clinicians.
Perfect.
So Arthur, Joanna, Joe, and Jeff. So we'll run with that. But Arthur and I have been talking about doing this episode, Joanna, for a while now. And I've been following Arthur since he graduated from the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine in 2022. You had a couple years of COVID in the middle of that. We can even discuss that. But you went down to the VA in Tucson, and you just had an incredible 3-year run there before moving out to Clinton, Missouri. You're currently chief of podiatry at the Golden Valley Memorial Hospital. And one of our goals in Dean's Chat is to highlight successful young docs. It's always a challenge coming out of residency, trying to find that right first position. So maybe that's not a bad place to start. Tell us, how did you end up in Missouri? That's just kind of a great story. I've been following you on Facebook, and I watched you like kind of decorating your office there. I see you have all the books, and you're raring to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, when I was in my third year of residency, my wife made an Excel sheet with all the small town hospitals around the country. And we cold called probably something like 300 to 350 hospitals. I mean, we were looking in places like Maine and North Dakota and Alaska. And really our goal, my wife and I's goal, was to get into a small town where I could be kind of that classic small town doctor. That's the reason I went to medical school. And so anyway, we were cold calling places, and I just happened to call at this hospital when their podiatrist had put in his 2 weeks. And so it was kind of one of those perfect transitions. I flew out, met with them, and they really hadn't had a wound care presence out here in this community. And we service a pretty large area of Missouri. There's Kansas City, which is about an hour and a half away, and Springfield, which is an hour and a half away, and everything in between comes to this community hospital. And so, I had quite a bit of experience with wound care, and it kind of fit what they were interested in maybe bringing to the community. And so they signed me back in September of my third year, and then they were great. They just kept us on the leash there, for the last little bit of my residency. And then I came out here, and it's been fabulous. It's wonderful out here. It's got like a little town of like 10,000 people. So, but we service about 100,000 people in the surrounding little tiny towns. But it's just got that middle America feel. So
that's fabulous. Oh my gosh, I could dive in head first here. Joe, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'd love to dive a little bit into some of that, because there was already some intention on your part. You knew you wanted to do more rural medicine.
Sure.
Did you know that even as a student? Were you guys thinking about this when you started doing externship planning and looking at different residencies that would prepare you? Can you talk a little bit about what was your initial interest in rural medicine? Like, how did that start?
Sure.
If it was pre-externships, and then how did it impact some of your decision making?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it comes down to my wife and I are from a small town. We met in high school. And basically I found the only girl in town I wasn't related to and married her, so we both knew that we wanted to end up back in small town. And that was something that had been a goal from the beginning. When I was in my undergraduate, I had the opportunity to join a organization called the Rural Health Scholars out in Utah. And it's like a pre-med organization that emphasizes rural health. And that's really where I learned a lot about the needs that are out there and what you can offer. And it's incredible in rural health because you can do everything. They need everything. So it's just as your scope of practice can be pretty large. And so it just really appealed to me. And so going into residency and everything, my emphasis was how can I be as well diversified that I can go into any small town and they can send me some obscure pathology or farm accident and I can feel comfortable treating it. And so it really kind of guided my training. But it was from day one that was our plan. So
I love that. And I absolutely agree. We've had a couple people, Jeff, that we've interviewed that have been more rural health, and there is no shortage of pathology. And there's, I'm sure we're gonna venture into this at some point as a young practitioner, but the opportunity, it feels almost counterintuitive. You're like, I don't know, going to this small town, like, I don't know if that, am I going to have the access to the things that I need? Sure. And to your point, you can really craft the life that you are comfortable providing within the scope of your practice, of course. But there is not a shortage of opportunity in my experience, and certainly talking with some of these other docs that are in rural care, and it sounds like your experience as well. I know I'm going to save some of my follow-up on that for later and not get too far ahead of myself, because there's some other very interesting things in your early career already that again just highlight the importance of community-based outreach and care. And I'm really excited to get into it.
Sure, yeah.
Joe, can I ask one more question though about the job search real quick? So sounds like you've got a playbook that other residents wouldn't mind hearing about. So you have an Excel spreadsheet.
Yes.
You've done all the research on small town hospitals all over the country. And then how many columns are in that spreadsheet? Like phone number, address, comments, contact number. How do you do all that? I mean, I'm very curious.
That's a really great question. I had an excellent mentor in residency, Jackson Law, which you probably remember, And what he recommended was that I create an Excel sheet that you make a sheet for each state. You list every hospital in the state that meets your criteria, phone number and email address. I'd go onto the hospital main page and I would look for, usually there's a physician recruitment page and there's always the, search for their careers, and you can go through their little system, but usually somewhere in there is a direct email for HR. And so what I would do is send an email to their HR department with my resume, a cover letter, what I was looking for, and I would just say, hey, if you got anything that you might have interest or some future interest, reach out to me. And then I had a little word sheet of responses based on if they said we don't take podiatrists or we do this. That way you're quick and you're able to be organized. And so usually you could find that email. Sometimes I would just have to cold call, especially in those really tiny hospitals. But we would just keep track of it, when the last email was sent, when the last phone call was sent, and I could track it by state. And so usually I would take a state per week or 2 weeks and then work on that. So that was really helpful. The other thing that I found that was really helpful was the government keeps a list of critical access hospitals online that you can search per state. And the critical access hospitals, they receive some federal funding, so they're usually able to offer a competitive salary, and usually the opportunities for bringing in grafts and advanced wound care and stuff is good because they have that federal funding, but they meet that small town feel, and they also provide the PSLF repayment that everyone wants. So the government keeps that list. You can Google it and you just search for critical access hospitals in such and such state. It'll give you a list and their contacts, and you go through there. But the hospital I'm at also happens to be one of the critical access hospitals, and so that was a big point for me, was to be able to go to a place where I could have loan forgiveness and also access to resources. So yeah.
That's so awesome. I have this vision of this color coded Excel. I love doing Excel spreadsheets too.
Sure.
And them all laid out. So, how did you, on a higher level, 30,000 foot level, how did you choose which states you originally were going to grind through? How does that
Well,
work?
that's first off, I just have to say I can't take credit for all the Excel. That was my wife, and she's fantastically organized. So that was she did most of the footwork for me. That being said, when we were looking at states, we were looking at it from the perspective of my family. So I've got 2 daughters, and so we were trying to figure out where do we want to raise them. What states match kind of our value system. But also my wife and I were kind of explorers. We've never really had an anchor point. We've traveled, we've always been fully independent. And so for us, it was kind of an adventure. So, we were looking at Maine, and we were looking at Missouri as places we'd never been, and we just thought it would be cool to go and try and give it a go. And so for us, it was kind of just picking places that were new and exciting. So
Sounds like a growth mindset. It's all kind of like your positioning of how you view the world. That's incredible. I like that.
it's you can always course correct if you end up in the wrong place, but you might as well go give it a shot and see. We hadn't done Midwest life, and I'll tell you what, it's great. It's addictive. It's the Midwest life out here is fantastic. So
it was also no, go ahead, Joe.
I was just can I jump on that idea for just a second? Because I think that this is such a wonderful mindset and important moment to just sit on that, if you don't mind, Arthur.
Sure.
Looking at your life as an adventure, because it absolutely is. We only get to do this once that we're aware of, right? So in that mindset of, if you could design your life the way you want it, why not make a spreadsheet and just put all of the things out there, and you can figure out what your own inclusion criteria are going to be. And I love that your wife was actually a really integral part of this, because the people that we take with us on these journeys are so important. And I don't think anyone would ever say, oh yeah, in 5 years, I expect to be divorced. But that happens to so many people. So how do you build your life that all of your people that matter to you are included in that? Right. And so I would also love to just ask, was this something that you started cultivating maybe when you were really small, coming from a small town, or was this something you started to get more bold as you started to branch out? Because Utah's not too far from Arizona, but it's still not, I'm just going to stay in my backyard and not, go out of my bubble. So when did you start feeling like my life is a journey and I'm going to enjoy every minute of it?
Yeah, we, like I said, we were high school sweethearts, and both of us were pretty much independent, about 17, we were, taking care of ourselves. And, so, we got married, and we decided just to go out and go. So we moved 3 hours away from our hometown down to St. George. And that was a fun adventure. And then we wanted some more, and we went down to Arizona and to Midwestern, and then we migrated south for Tucson. But really what got us really into it was actually in my 3rd and 4th year of medical school. So we had those opportunities to go out on our externships, and my wife and I sat and we thought about it, and we chose to choose different places around the country. And we ended up going in a giant circle. And every time we go to a new state, and this is advice I give to all new medical students when they rotated through the Tucson VA, is that every state that you go in for an externship, you should visit another program. So, if we have roughly, I can't remember how many rotations we have, but something like 10, maybe. That means you should have seen and experienced at least 20 by the time that you get back. And so we would go to, like when I went to Michigan, I was at Beaumont, and then I visited DMC. When I was at Lake Charles in Louisiana, I went down and visited the HCA Houston programs. Every single month we found a new one. So my wife and I basically, when it came to a third and fourth year, we sold everything that didn't fit in our minivan. We had our 2 daughters, and they were young, and we lived out of a van for a year. And I think we clocked it out as something like 28 states that we ended up living at least part-time in, and doing things in. And it was the adventure of a lifetime. And so I think after that, that was what really got us into, when it came to look for jobs, they're like, well, we can go anywhere. We've already done this.
Yeah.
So let's go figure something out. That's another fun adventure. So.
Oh, I love that so much. Cause we were just talking not too long about there's so much value in perspective taking, and you can look at things in different ways. And certainly what might be a stressful situation for one person, like, oh my gosh, I have to take my family around the country. That sounds incredibly stressful. And I don't want to downplay what that feels like for the people that it is stressful. Sure. There is another way of looking at that same coin as, you know what, this is a time in our life that we can when else do you get to live just in a city for a month, knowing if I don't like it, I can leave, because that's the expectation. Is part of the plan is to diverge from the plan. Right. And so I love that your perspective was, let's just embrace that it's going to be, maybe a little awkward to, take everybody around and schlep from one place to the next, but just kind of lean into that and take it as this is going to be an adventure, and all of us are going to come out stronger. And look at how it translated for you. You're the chief of podiatry now, 1 year out of residency. I think this to me is not a surprise. This actually sounds very intentional and thoughtful for someone that knows how to frame what they want and not be afraid to reach for it. I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to give the ball back to Jeff. Or I'll keep talking.
Incredible. So I think Michael Hyam was a year ahead of you, right?
Yeah. I think.
So Michael loaded up his family in a trailer, if I'm not mistaken, and traveled around the country. Were you like taking notes, or were you?
Well, I had some people that we had heard about that. For our particular situation, we used the Airbnbs and whatnot. But I had an opportunity where Nick Petrick, he's another one of the graduates at Midwestern. I met him when he was a student coming through the Tucson VA, and I told him all about it. And he and his wife purchased a trailer, and they did that. They lived out of and they traveled all over the country, and he ended up in residency with me. So, which was kind of a cool, nice full circle, and we became good friends. But so I think there's, as it's the generation ahead of you makes the generation, and it goes that way. So we definitely had some great ideas that way. And like I said, for our particular situation, the Airbnbs worked wonderful, so.
That's great. Well, Andrew Baum was in your class too, right?
Oh yeah. Andrew and I were, best friends for life. He's a great.
Well, excuse me, Andrew, it's an incredible story. When he finished his residency in LA, he moved back up to Oregon, and he is an attending doctor at the hospital he was born in.
At LeGrand, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, if you remember, he and his wife had their kid in med school, like we did, 1 month apart, little Ray. And we've been close. We go on camping with him at Joshua Tree every year. And he's there's no one better in this world than him. I was
Yeah.
blessed to have the chance to be friends with him. So
Oh my gosh, that's
good
incredible.
people.
And then Jackson Law, who is with you in Tucson, I think he's down the street from Andrew
He is, yeah. He's
up in
only a couple hours away,
right,
and he's out
right.
there. And again, he was a mentor all the way through med school and then into residency. And I don't know why. I don't know why he chose to be so giving, but from day one, that's how he was. He just everyone he came into contact to, he helped. So
Absolutely. Well, it's no surprise that you're all being extremely successful hospital-based docs. You've taken your training to the max, and I just super proud of you and all of them.
it's been an adventure. Yeah, we had a good run. It was fun.
Gosh, that's incredible. Joe, your thoughts? I mean, I'm kind of going through this reminiscent mode here.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd love to piggyback on that because some other things in the very beginning we were talking about, Arthur, you had commented about the value of community. And when
Sure.
you were a second year resident, I believe you started getting involved with kind of community outreach and even in regards to things like care for patients along the border.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, you are part of now a board of trustees. Can you talk a little bit about the nonprofit that you've been working to help establish and kind of what that mission looks like?
In my second year, I had this incredible friend. He was a drug rep at the hospital, but I mean, he was probably one of my best friends I've ever had. And, he really helped me kind of through residency. And anyway, he and I were spitballing one night. And we were just like, we should do something that make it our own. And so we came up with this idea of Altruismo, which is it's a nonprofit that's designed to help communities along the border towns between America and Mexico. And the idea is that, we got these great medical mission trips for cleft lip and for clubfoot and things, but maybe we can offer wound care to these underserved areas. And so anyway, it started off as an idea, then it became a real thing. We went through and we got our government paperwork filled out and we got approved as a nonprofit. And that was we worked for quite a while through my residency to get that. And near the end of my residency is when we achieved that status. And so now we procured equipment and we've kind of got a few things in order. And now it's something that we're hoping to enact and start getting going. But it's been a really kind of cool grassroots little movement that we got to start. And it's just a good way to give back. And wound care is just one of those things where it's just so important to preserve people's dignity and their independence. And, that wound that you heal translates into years with their family. And so being able to give that to these communities that just don't have access to those incredible advanced wound care products is really cool. So.
Yeah, I can only imagine how gratifying that experience of genuinely starting something from the ground up and watching it, start to grow in providing something exactly to your point that gives people the chance of mobility, going back to work. I mean, helping people in a way that has significant impact on a daily basis for them and then their families. So I thought that was a really neat, unique thing on your CV that I love highlighting the 501s or 503Cs and different nonprofits that podiatrists do, because there's so much incredible work people are doing. And it's sometimes hard to find that information online. So if people are interested, we can maybe point them in your direction if there's anybody that also wants to get involved.
Definitely, it's in its infancy, but we've now laid the foundation. We worked hard to get everything set up so that now it can take hold and hopefully start making some big impact. So,
yeah, I love that. Jeff, your thoughts?
I was thinking, Arthur, that maybe students from the school would even want to come down and be involved.
Yeah, we'd love that. Yeah. The opportunity to go down and when you're doing these community outreach things, you see some wild pathology, and you get to work with different people and different languages, and it's very edifying as a clinician to go there and be taken out of your comfort zone a little bit. It would be awesome to have Midwestern students part of that. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's funny that there's no shortage of pathology. A friend recently sent me a water moccasin bite from Rio Grande Valley area.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, those are life threatening actually. So those types of services are just incredible. That's great.
Absolutely.
Can you reflect a little bit about your Midwestern time, the Arizona college, and the basic sciences and working your way
Sure.
up before you went on rotations? Because a lot of prospective students are watching these videos, and
Sure.
and you're just a tremendous story about going for it and going out on a limb and going with the flow and making things happen. So I'd love to get your feedback on that.
Yeah, my time at Midwestern was probably the best 4 years of my life. We got down there and we made an incredible friend group with Andrew Baum and Tyler Holobar and Josh Smith and Nate Clyde, and that was kind of my core. Those were my people, and so during med school, you kind of develop this trauma bonding that happens as you go through the courses. And I was never a particularly great student. Before med school, during med school, I was always kind of that average student, and it was a challenge. Every day was hard, and it pushed me in a lot of ways I would have never thought possible. But you know what, you get through it and you take it a step at a time, and you come out a totally different person from it. I think in my experience, one of the things that I try and tell med students when they rotate through is that, med school is, it's a lot of learning, but it's also a lot of character development. And the way that you do that is you do step outside of the classroom. So when I was I found a lot of enjoyment volunteering with Special Olympics. And my wife, again, she joined me for a lot of those. That was something that we enjoyed, going down to Cass and doing those. We did the anatomy ID stuff with for desert stuff for the FBI and the police department. And the other thing was that I was part of the student body, and I was the treasurer for basically my entire time there, which meant I was treasurer for the Podiatry, but also for CHS, which was the college that we used to be in. And it's not that I'm good at finance. I didn't do anything with that, but it forced me to go to all the activities and to make friends and to see people. And so, that's the step I encourage students to do is, focus on your studies, get what you need to out of that for sure. But also, you're only in med school once. And you might as well take advantage of every extracurricular that they have and make those friends, because it only serves to better you later on in life. So,
Joe, that's interesting because, Arthur, to hear you say it was 4 of the best years of your life, I feel the same way about the 4 years I spent in California. But I'm not so sure I ever told anybody at the college that those were the best 4 years of my life. Because I think when we were in the mix of it, maybe it didn't feel like it sometimes,
Yeah.
But in retrospect.
Yeah, when you're in the midst of it, it's a lot different. But then you get out, and it's not that life is bad on the other side. It's fantastic. But there's just this period of time when you can become anyone you want in med school, and you're surrounded by people that are in the same exact stage of life, regardless of where they came from. And it's a really special time, and it's something that changes you. So,
this isn't really related to this interview, but what's Tyler up to? You mentioned he was one of your best friends.
Sure, yeah. So that whole crew of friends are doing fantastic. Nate's down in Colorado. He's got a great practice. Josh is up in Seattle doing wonderful. And Tyler got a gig down in Georgia, and he's a big time surgery guy down there, so which totally suits him. That's
Yeah.
he was always really good with his hands and the technical side of things. And I think all of us in my little friend group found the niche that fit us right. And we all ended up in, we never would have guessed that's where we're all going to end up. But everyone ended up where they needed to be for their families. So it's been great.
Well, Joe, I can give a little shameless plug for the Friends and Alumni meeting at ACTFast this year.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be on a Wednesday night, because it's in Vegas, so they have the meeting early in the week. And so if we'll spread the word, of course, to all the alum, but if you can talk to all your buds, it'd be great to see you all and get our CME credits and have a great time seeing everybody and catching up.
Yeah, I think,
and I would love to meet all these people.
Oh,
yeah,
because I love in real life meetups. So
it's we have podiatry is a small field. I was at a flaps course just a couple of weeks ago, and I ran into Johnny and Kayla, and it's funny the people you run into, that little cluster of 35 kids or whatever that's in your class. They're with you for life. So yeah, it's great. And it's crazy because you'll not see them for 4 years, and then it's just like it's like you never missed a day,
Yeah.
So.
Well, from experience, I can tell you it'll be the same after 30 years or more.
Sure.
Like
absolutely.
You don't
I think it's the trauma bonding in med school. I don't know what it is, but yeah.
I've heard that term, but I've heard that term, but I've never really looked it up, but it sounds appropriate.
Yeah. It's absolutely.
All right. Well, you are always welcome to come back to the Arizona College and discuss your experiences with the students. We'd love to have you as an alum to come back and participate. So if you ever find yourself in that situation, we'd love to have you over.
That would be wonderful. Yeah.
All right, great. Joe, we had to do rapid fire.
Well, before we do that, I still have another question I kind of wanted to pick his brain about that's very on theme with some of the other things we've talked about. But first, maybe we hear a quick word from our sponsor.
We all know that early detection is the most important determination in improving patient outcomes. Bako Diagnostics remains committed to supporting you in your role as the first line of defense in diagnosing lower extremity pathologies. Bako Diagnostics, helping podiatric physicians keep America on its feet.
All right, welcome back. We love hearing from Bako. They support us a ton. And Arthur, I'm sure you remember the different workshops and opportunities to engage with like hands-on learning. So we are very grateful to Bako. But one of the things that I was noticing as I was looking through, you've done some publishing, but one of the ones that I find incredibly fascinating, and I'd love to pick your brain because it's completely on brand with now that I feel like I've gotten to know you virtually, this idea of the podiatry connection model. I'd love to talk with you more about it. If you don't mind, I actually want to read a little snippet from the paper because I find this topic so important and impactful, especially as it relates more in our elderly population, but even in our not elderly population. So I'd love to kind of get your experience. But I'm going to quote you. So a clinically actionable framework designed to operationalize the identification and management of social risk factors in foot and ankle medicine. PCM integrates biopsychosocial assessment, structured communication strategies, caregiver and community engagement, enhanced follow-up and intensity, and ongoing monitoring to mitigate the negative effects of loneliness on clinical outcomes. So tell us more about this podiatry connection model.
Well, it started in my residency. So, I had the incredible opportunity to work with veterans at the Tucson VA, and some of those vets, through just their life, they end up on their own and they're alone. And wound care, is a very intimate thing. You're seeing them all the time, and you're working to try and preserve that limb, preserve that life. Anyway, along that course of time, I really developed some kind of personal connections with the vets. There were nights when I was on call and I would order pizza for everyone on the little wing down there, and they would just swap their war stories until 3 a.m. And we had good memories like that. I had a lot of vets where many that I would go to their funerals and speak and talk to their families. I tried to take the medicine and extend it into the whole patient. And it became this kind of thing that I built down there, between the research that I was working on and the veterans that I was doing, where we were seeing huge changes. We'd get these veterans that would come in with these wounds that hadn't healed in years. And by engaging them and being that friend, being that connection that they needed, they were healing. The other thing that we found, what was interesting, was that once you tell a veteran that the research I'm doing on your foot can help one of their friends, they are 100% compliant. They could have a documented non-compliance for years, but the second you tell them that it could benefit another veteran, these guys are on board. And it caught like fire. I during my time in residency, I published 9 publications on various wound care and different things that we had, and we were changing things. In fact, one of the cool things that happened to me in my last year of residency was that the Veterans Hall of Fame Society inducted me into their Hall of Fame for the stuff that I've been doing in residency. And so anyway, I just had this incredible experience about kind of a whole patient care that I developed in residency. And when I got out here to Clinton, I found the same thing. It wasn't veterans, but it's the same sort of situation with social isolation, people that were off in these little areas of life, and they just don't have the people in their background. And so this paper came about because I was giving a talk in church, and it was the topic was "No One Sits Alone," and I just realized that it was entirely applicable to what we do in medicine. And so I started working with my nurse practitioner, and we developed a protocol that we've been employing out here in Clinton, where we have a series of questions, certain things that we document. We make sure that they understand the dressing change, what things to look for, that they have someone that's at home for them, that they have an expectation of where we're going, and that they know that we are keeping track of them. And one of the tools that we did was we put up a bell in my clinic, and the bell is kind of like what they have at cancer centers. And we started having these celebrations when they would heal wounds, and they invite their whole family. We take photos. It's a big event. And it started getting people excited. So they get these chronic wounds and be like, we're going to ring the bell in 6 weeks. That's my commitment to you. 6 weeks, give me a chance. I'm going to try these grafts. Let's do it. And we're killing it. The people are doing it. They're healing. They're doing great. And so that's kind of how this that whole paper came about, was me trying to take all the stuff that I learned in residency and what I've been employing in my practice out here and take it into one paper where maybe people can find a way to implement it in their practices and add to it and see some of the same results we've had. So.
Yeah, I love that. And, there's been a lot of good work somewhat recently coming out about the impact of things like depression on patients' ability to heal. And so what I appreciated so much about this one is it wasn't just that one behavioral health diagnosis, that it was actually looking at much more holistically at a patient, and very much community as well, because, if we look at some of the blue zones stuff, loneliness is a risk factor for premature death. And so, everything is the new smoking, right? But loneliness is the new smoking. So I thought that was actually, again, a very reflective point for someone still so young in your career. I had to learn that the hard way by after a while, you just start to realize wow, I just realized that the nurse practitioner that's been helping with home health is reaching out to let me know maybe I need to do a better job asking certain questions. So, and again, fantastic, Arthur, you've already put into a protocol and so I just commend you on that work and want to highlight it, to share it with the community, because there's so much more that we provide patients than just the acute medical care. That's obviously an important part of what we do, but anybody can show empathy and kindness and help patients recognize that they are more than just a number when they come in the clinic. So I appreciated that. Now we can move into rapid fire, Jeff.
Well, Joe, I had one other question though. Arthur, I
Yeah.
remember when you put the bell up in your clinic, you posted it on
Sure.
social media, and I remember seeing it. And I had a question for you about post healing. I imagine they stop by your office and say hi for a cup of coffee. I mean, how does that play out
Oh,
after you
sure.
made such a connection?
Yeah. So, I structure it so that I see these patients and I tell them, after we heal, we're going to see you every month for about 6 months, and we're going to see you every 2 months for the rest of your life, and that you always have a place here at our clinic. So they know this is kind of their safe place, and so yeah, we have patients that drop by and see me, and it's a small town. There's 10,000. I see them at Walmart. I see them everywhere I go. They add me on Facebook, and I add them back. This is my whole point of going to med school, and who I wanted to be was to be the family doc that made house visits, right? And so I think we just try and emphasize that they have a place here in our clinic and that they belong, and whether they're healed or not healed, we're going to see them and keep in touch. So yeah, it's been really cool. We've already really got a great following of patients that way, and I think it's growing now that the surrounding communities are hearing that we're doing advanced wound care, which really wasn't present in the community. I'm booked out months in advance out here. We're just inundated with people that need help. So it's been really cool.
Well, it is incredible.
So I heard maybe you might be hiring in the future, perhaps, is what I just heard you say.
Yeah. We shortly after I started here, we hired on a part-time provider, and I think it's going to grow. My nurse practitioner is already full of patients, and my goal is to transition to maybe 80% wound care, and because that's what I love. That's where my passion's at. And then have someone that handles the bread and butter, someone that handles the trauma and things like that. Right now, I'm kind of doing everything, and so, which is great, because that's what you need out of residency. You got to take it all. So, but yeah, I definitely see in the next 5 years or so that we can turn this place into a wound care mecca for the area. So,
it's fantastic.
That is just fabulous. All right, let's kick off some rapid fire.
Sure.
So Arthur, in Clinton, what's your favorite restaurant, or would that get you in trouble?
Oh, no, yeah, Joe's Italian. Yeah, they got there's a place right near my house, and it's weird because we're in the middle of America, but we've got this crazy Italian restaurant down there, and it's bomb. So that's the go-to.
So what's the meal of choice?
Oh yeah, so they make a killer pizza down there, and I eat gluten-free, and so it's rare to find a place that has gluten-free, and they make to die for gluten-free pizza. So that's the go-to.
Excellent.
So my favorite question to ask is about music in the OR. So what kind of
Sure.
music do you like to play in the OR, Arthur?
Yeah, so I'm a classic rock guy. So we
What era of classic rock do you consider classic?
70s and 80s. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll take everything, but it kind of depends. We actually ask the patients most of the time. And so I've been in the OR where we've listened to Bob Marley, and because they were into that, we listen to Christian rock or whatever. Even though they're asleep, we try and let them pick a little bit. But generally speaking, yeah, classic rock. That's where my jam's at.
Fantastic.
So obviously you like to read and you like to keep your sources. If you were to turn around and grab one book behind you, which book would it be? What's your go-to?
Ooh, yeah, that's a great question. Well, I've got a number of them back here. That's actually, it started from you guys. I don't know if you remember, but you guys cleared out all your old books in my year of med school, and I came in with some boxes and picked a bunch up. That's where my collection started. But probably the one that I go through and read the most is this. I have a lower extremity surgery and biology repair. It's this guy here. So it's an old book that my mentor down at the Tucson VA gave me, and I've probably read this 3 or 4 times through. And it's classic. It talks about the biology of wound healing and the theories behind it. And it's something that every time I read it, I find something new in. So that's usually my go-to book. But
you know a book is good if you're reading it or listening to it. If you read it or listen over and over, you learn something new each time. That's great.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. There's always something new in there for me. So
All right. Good call.
All right. If you could invite anyone to dinner from any time in history, it could be a personal family member or somebody famous, who would you invite and why?
oh man, that's a great question. Who would I invite? Probably Roger Waters. Yeah. So I'm a big Pink Floyd fan, like die hard. And when I grew up in Utah, I went every couple weeks to the light shows. So Pink Floyd is my jam. And so any chance to meet Roger Waters, David Gilmour, Roger Wright, any of those guys, I would take absolutely.
Oh, that's
In a
fantastic.
heartbeat. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything
So-
specific you'd want to ask them?
Ooh.
Oh man. I want to ask him to play me some music. I mean,
I
that's
love it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Personal
that's
show.
all I want. I want to kick back and let you guys do your magic. That's it.
Fair
So I have a question for you. When you were younger, did your parents play like Sirius Radio, classic rock,
Sure.
vinyl rock? Is that where you got a lot of that, or what?
Yeah. One of my, the things that I connected really well with my dad was music. And so when we would drive, we turn on the radio, and then I would have to name the artist, the lead guitarist, or whoever, And I got really good at it, and it made me really into it. So it was something that my dad and I connected on really well, and that's kind of where my love for classic rock started. But
Oh, that's a great story.
I love that.
Joe, any last words or questions?
No, thank you so much, Arthur, for taking the time to come chat with us about your experiences, and just keep doing the amazing work. We're just thrilled to keep watching it happen.
well, thanks. It's a real pleasure to come talk to you guys again. I like I said, Dr. Jensen and I have been talking about this for a long time, and I just Midwestern changed my life, and so any chance that I can to support that school and what you guys do I'm happy to do.
That's so great. Just warms my heart to see our students so successful. So Arthur, thank you. And to all of our listeners out there, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, we'd love to have a 5-star rating, but even better yet, leave a comment or two. And if you're watching on YouTube, by all means, become a subscriber. Joe, I say this all the time, we'll continue to bring leaders in the profession, but in this case, future rock stars in our profession, like Arthur. So cheers, Arthur. We're going to send you a Dean's Chat mug to add to your collection there at the hospital. And we're so proud of you. Keep up the great work.
Thanks so much. Yeah.
All right. Cheers, everybody. Bye-bye.